Cool. Hey everyone, I'm Sam. I'm here to talk about growth analytics. I'm one of the lead analysts at Moonpay. I'm looking after growth analytics and finance analytics teams. So I'm talking about first principles as well. So yeah, I've worked in a few different places throughout my career, and like everywhere I've worked, we've always been building on top of stuff that's been built. And Moonpay was the first place that I came to, and there was nothing built for growth analytics. So it's kind of interesting. Normally, you go in somewhere and people have ideas and stuff, but then we came here and it was like, wow, we get to build whatever we want, but we already have an amazing data platform. So I kind of want to talk through how I thought about like setting out the strategy for what we build and what we're building now. So it's kind of talking about going from 0 to 1, and then one day if I can come back, I can talk about how we've got from 1 to 100. I'm going to quickly talk about myself and then talk about Moonpay a little bit. We're hiring, so like if anyone wants to come speak to me. And then I'm going to talk a bit about first principles, and then the foundations of our growth analytics team, and then some final thoughts as well. So I'll get into it. So yeah, that's me. I'm here, I'm there. I'm a technologist, I would say. I have worked in data all my career. I started off doing econometrics. I did analytics, then I did ML as well. And now I'm in a role that allows me to do all three, which is amazing. I do a lot of web development just like by myself. I like build web apps and stuff, and I do loads of electronics engineering as well. So yeah, I'm founder of a couple of companies. So I started a company called Overcoat, which is unfortunately resting in peace. That was an amazing experience. And I also started a company with some friends called Soda Jerk. It's a robotics bar. You press a button and you get a drink. And I built the software that goes from the button press to drinks. And in an alternate universe, I'd be a musician. So I play piano. I love playing piano, and I produce and DJ as well. So yeah, cool. Oh man, this looks really bad on Windows. No, I'm joking. So our tagline is onboarding the world to Web3 at Moonpay. So yeah, we launched in 2019. We're a really simple software solution for people to onboard to crypto, basically. We're Series A, we support loads of different assets, and we're kind of, I guess, diversifying what we do. We've got like a company called Hypermint in Moonpay that's also like for minting NFTs and stuff like that. So yeah, there's lots of growth, lots of future opportunities. We are really hiring, so please do come and see. Bav told me I could say that. Growth analytics. So yeah, before I started, I just wanted to shout out two people. So Leonardo and Joanne. So Leonardo works in my team now, and I kind of come up with the strategy and he builds. So I just wanted to say thank you. And then Joanne, who's been my manager for years, and we recently parted ways. And I've learned everything I know from her basically. So first principles. Is everyone aware of what first principles are? I can see some people and some people. I'm going to talk about it anyway. So I guess first principles, the idea is that you break down complex problems into like really, really basic elements, and then you create solutions on top of that. So it kind of is a concept that's taken from physics, and the idea is essentially that you get to the most basic assumption that you can't build, that can't be deduced from any other assumptions, basically. So you break things down right to the very basic level that's factual, basically, and then you build solutions on top. Yeah, it's a truth that can't be broken down further, and an example is like laws of motion. So the laws of motion is like if a body is at rest, or if it's moving in a constant speed, in a straight line at a constant speed, it will continue being at rest or move in a straight line at a constant speed until some force acts upon it. And so that's the first principle. It's factual, and then we can build theory about the whole physical universe on top of that, and that's how we have understanding of what's going on in the universe. And so it's a powerful tool, I think, for problem solving, and I think taking a first principles approach allows us to align our tools, our processes, our research to certain areas, essentially. So why do I use it for analytics? Because I think that analytics, as most of you probably know, gets really, really complex, really, really fast. It's like statistics, it's models, it's technology, and we all have to know all of that. But I also like to sort of take an approach that simplifies rather than building on that complexity, and then we can think about complex solutions. these are the steps that I would take to think about first principles. So it's a very problem-centric approach. When we are faced with a problem, so our problem was we've come into Moonpay and there's no growth analytics platform at all. What do? We identify the current assumptions that we have about growth and what we want to build. And then we break down the problem into its most basic truths, and that's what your first principles. And then you create your solutions on top of those first principles. And so I've come up with like 4 key problems, which are like the foundations, I think, of growth in general. And that's what I'm going to talk through now. First principle number 1 is all customers differ. That's a fact. It's basically about customer heterogeneity, and it's the most basic issue in growth. So essentially, I guess when you think about customers, people have different life experiences, they have different desired identities, they have different functional needs, and there's also advertising that actively works to influence them. And so everyone's different. And so how can we come up with solutions for things like that? Well, we can use things like location data or purchase history data, or if we know anything from research about their life experiences, we can start to segment those customers into different groups and come up with effective and appropriate solutions for targeting those people. And so you can think about solving problems like churn. If we know what makes customers different to each other, we can start to build churn models and so on. First principle number 2 is that all customers change. So first principle number 1 says that all customers are different, and this is basically saying that this is talking about customer dynamics. So a customer will essentially change over time. That could be because of the environment that they're in, or personal situations, or just the market changes for different things. And so here we can start to think about things like modeling customer lifetime value. So we know what customer's lifetime value is at point 1, and then what is customer's lifetime value, and how is it changing over time? And we can see those differences in customers. First principle number 3 is that all competitors react. These are very simple. So this is all about, like, I guess, brand and sustainable competitive advantage. So yeah, you're always going to have competition. They're always going to be on your tails. They're always going to be looking to either copy what you do or attack what you're doing and build new products and ideas. And so here we can start to think about things like brand awareness, which is part of growth. So advertising, PR, celebrity endorsements, new products as well. And essentially what we're trying to do is build a barrier to protect ourselves from competition. And so what sort of analytics do we apply to that? We can start to think about like survey designs for brand awareness or brand perception, or like probabilistic forecasting of new product offerings and deciding which thing do we do first and is going to drive the most volume or value for us. And then the last one is basically that all resources are limited. So I studied economics as an undergrad, and it's essentially a resource allocation problem. So this is where we answer questions like, okay, we have a very limited amount of budget, but we want unlimited growth. And so how do we allocate that budget? How much do we allocate to brand? How much do we allocate to targeted marketing? How much do we allocate to celebrity endorsements? And so, yeah, this is basically a question of trade-offs, optimal resource management, and I'm sure like some of you or most of you will know, like here's where we start to apply things like MMM. We call it BMM in Moonpay, which is marketing mix models, business mix models, because it's not just marketing, it's like actually taking in the business and the wider context, and that was Leo's idea. I don't know if he's here, but yeah, we call it BMM. And so yeah, you can think about MMM, we can think about also experimentation and causal inference as well, which is a massive thing in growth that I'll touch on really briefly. Okay, we thought of our first principles, and then we start to think of all the solutions that we apply to those principles. And this is where we start to bring in the analytics, essentially. So first principle number 1, all customers are different. We can start to do segmentation. We can start to think about personalization as well. And so we can start to think about targeting customers with different things at the right time because they're all different. And one message wouldn't work for everyone. With first principle number 2, all customers change. That's what I talked about. So customer lifetime value modeling, forecasting, uplift modeling as well. So understanding which variables are causing customers to do a certain thing, essentially. All competitors react, so we can look at like brand awareness surveys and forecasting product and partnership volumes. And then first principle number 4, all resources are limited. We think about business mix modeling and growth causal inference. And we're in a kind of unique place in the cryptocurrency industry where we also have on-chain analytics. So we can actually see what customers are doing with their assets off the Moonpay platform. So they buy crypto through us, and then we can see where that goes and we can follow them around. And so for us, on-chain analytics kind of underlines all of these areas because that can feed into our MMM models, it can feed into our forecasting, it can feed into our customer lifetime value modeling, our churn modeling. A customer's come to us and bought, but then we can see where else they're buying from, essentially. So we underline all of that with on-chain analytics. These are just some techniques about, I'm not going to talk too much about them, but these are just some techniques. How do you get to first principles, essentially? So asking why. So like a child, just keep asking why. And normally 5 whys is enough to get to what the basic principles are. And then Socratic questioning, which is just answering these different types of questions. So what do you mean? What could we assume? Why do you think that's true? What effect would that have, and what would be the alternative? And then be really annoying and ask, what is the point of this? And so, yeah, like those are just ideas. I don't know if these presentations get shared, but these are ideas for how do you get to first principles. And I really like to think about things in first principles. Now that I've talked about how we've kind of approached building our growth stack, I just really, really quickly wanted to do one slide on essentially what we have actually started doing. So we started off with foundations, and one of the things I did was try to make sure that we're building on solid foundations. So we have this amazing opportunity to build whatever we want, and we could go crazy, but we've started at the basics, and then we want to build on foundations. And so like there's 4 foundations for me, which I think are super key. So the first one is our MarTech stack. That's just a diagram that I didn't know whether I could share the whole thing, and I was trying to clear it with our internal, so I've made it really small, but yeah, so like hopefully you guys can't see too much. But yeah, basically that's like my go-to, it's my Bible for everything, and I make sure that anything that we're building, we're adhering to that. And if we need to change it, we change it, essentially. So we have that, and we look at it, and we build on top of that, and we develop the different areas. Another foundation, which I think is super vital and probably everyone here is aware of, again, is events and tracking. So we follow a track once principle. We will always go for server-side events over client-side events. We have a taxonomy, which we share with the engineering teams. And we also are filtering with integration objects. So we use Segment, and we make sure that everything's version controlled. We make sure that it's peer reviewed. We make sure that it's free code, and it's flexible as well. And then data collection. So this is a foundation that I think is, again, super important. So we have a data collection strategy for the growth analytics team. We have tools that we've developed as well for collecting internal data. And then we have a cookie policy to make sure that we're GDPR compliant. And we also follow naming conventions for everything that we're doing. And then finally, attribution framework. So that's where we want to get to, right? And we started at the principles, but our attribution framework. So just like 4 quick points, we always focus incrementality over attribution every time. And in the short term, what we're doing is log level for now, because we're still building our platform. I've only been there 3 months. And in the medium term, what we're moving to is to move away from the log level and start using MMM with a how did you hear about a survey, and then always everything grounded in incrementality, not attribution. So everything should be grounded in incrementality. And so we'll do MMM, and then we'll feed the results of our experiments back into our MMM models, and we'll keep iterating, essentially. This is my final slide, I think. Yeah, so always start with defining your fundamental principles, and make sure you're building on solid foundations, and then 3, never stop iterating. So always incrementality first. And I think that's all. So yeah, thank you.